If you missed class, we moved away from the Federalist Papers into the Anti-Federalist. And, the obvious observation you're having, 4 Federalists, 1 Anti-Federalist. Why is that? So if you're curious, as you know, the Federalists won the day. And also, as one person put it in class, and I get where you're coming from, you said, hey, weren't the Anti-Federalists just the opposite of the Federalist? Yeah, to a degree they were. Obviously, that's a reductionist way of looking at it, but there's some truth to that. That's the other side of the coin. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read this anti-federalist text. So, if you're really sick and you can't read, you can listen. Or if you're struggling with insomnia, you can listen to me read this and it might take you to a soft landing. Okay, so hopefully there's some positivity one way or the other. So, again, real straightforward. I'm going to read this to you, and hopefully, from this reading, you can answer these questions. All right, so I will begin. Anti-Federalist 1, excerpts, October 18th, 1787, to the citizens of the state of New York. When the public is called to investigate and decide upon a question in which not only the present members of the community are deeply interested, but upon which the happiness and misery of generations yet unborn is in great measure suspended, the benevolent mind cannot help feeling itself peculiarly interested in the result. In this situation, I trust the feeble efforts of an individual to lead the minds of the people to a wise and prudent determination cannot fail of being acceptable to the candid and dispassionate part of the community. Encouraged by this consideration, I have been induced to offer my thoughts upon the present important crisis of our public affairs. The first question that presents itself on the subject is whether a confederated government be the best for the United States or not, or in other words, whether the 13 states should be reduced to one great republic governed by one legislature and under the direction of one executive and judicial, or whether they should continue 13 confederated republics under the direction and control of a supreme federal head for certain defined national purposes only. This inquiry is important because although the government reported by the convention does not go to a perfect and entire consolidation, yet it approaches so near to it that it must, if executed, certainly and infallibly terminate in it. This government is to possess absolute and uncontrollable power, legislative, executive, and judicial, with respect to every object to which it extends, for by the last clause of Section 8, Article 1, it is declared that the Congress shall have the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States, or in any department or office thereof. And by the 6th article, it is declared that this Constitution, the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and the treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or law of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. It appears from these articles that there is no need of any intervention of the state governments between the Congress and the people to execute any one power vested in the general government, and that the Constitution and laws of every state are nullified and declared void so far as they are or shall be inconsistent with this Constitution, or the laws made in pursuance of it, or with treaties made under the authority of the United States. The government then, so far as it extends, is a complete one, and not a confederation. It is as much one complete government as that of New York or Massachusetts, has an absolute and perfect powers to make and execute all laws, to appoint officers, institute courts, declare offenses, and annex penalties. With respect to every object to which it extends as any other in the world, so far, therefore, as its powers reach, all ideas of confederation are given up and lost. It is true this government is limited to certain objects, or to speak more properly, some small degree of power is still left to the states. But a little attention to the powers vested in the general government will convince every candid man that if it is capable of being executed, all that is reserved for the individual states must very soon be annihilated except so far as they are barely necessary to the organization of the general government. The powers of the general legislature extend to every case that is of the least importance. There is nothing valuable to human nature, nothing dear to freemen, but what is within its power. It has authority to make laws which will affect the lives, liberty, and property of every man in the United States. Nor can the Constitution or laws of any state in any way prevent or impede the full and complete execution of every power given. The legislative power is competent to lay taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. There is no limitation to this power, unless it be said that the clause which directs the use to which those taxes and duties shall be applied may be said to be a limitation. But this is no restriction of the power at all. For by this clause they are to be applied to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But the legislature have authority to contract debts at their discretion. They are the sole judges of what is necessary to provide for the common defense, and they only are to determine what is for the general welfare. This power, therefore, is neither more nor less than a power to lay and collect taxes, imposts, and excises at their pleasure. Not only is the power to lay taxes unlimited as to the amount they may require, but it is perfect and absolute to raise them in any mode they please. No state legislature or any power in the state governments have any more to do in carrying this into effect than the authority of one state has to do with that of another. In the business, therefore, of laying and collecting taxes, the idea of confederation is totally lost, and that of one entire republic is embraced. How far the clause in the 8th section of the first article may operate to do away all idea of confederated states and to effect an entire consolidation of the whole into one general government, it is impossible to say. The powers given by this article are very general and comprehensive, and it may receive a construction to justify the passing almost any law. A power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution all powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States, or any department or officer thereof, is a power very comprehensive and definite, and may, for aught I know, be exercised in a such manner as entirely to abolish the state legislatures. Suppose the legislature of a state should pass a law to raise money to support their government and pay the state debt. May the Congress repeal this law because it may prevent the collection of a tax which they may think proper and necessary to lay to provide for the general welfare of the United States. For all laws made in pursuance of this Constitution are the supreme lay of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of the different states to the contrary notwithstanding. By such a law, the government of a particular state might be overturned at one stroke, and thereby be deprived of every means of its support. This is written by Brutus, also known as Robert Yates, Connecticut politician, and the name he chose was the assassin of Julius Caesar. Okay, so I know these readings are a lot, but think about this, okay? In these questions, the point of this, and I don't want to give you the answers, I want you to think about this, but what was the main problem that Brutus had with the Constitution? And I did my best to emphasize one. He was concerned really that the states would have no power at all, and that this necessary and proper clause is so ambiguous that the federal government can do whatever they want. And that's going to lead us back into tyranny. That was their big concern. Now, what part of the Constitution did they have the biggest beef with, the biggest, concern with? And they actually mentioned in there. I'm going to let you find that yourself. Even if you're sick, you can handle that one. That's fairly easy. And then question 3. What are the main differences between what Madison wrote in Federalist 10, factions, if you forgot, that's the one about factions, and what Yates wrote in Antifederalist 1? So not a very difficult day, pretty traditional day. But if you did miss class, either listen to me or read this and answer these questions. And again, before you say, what were they thinking? Okay, even today, there are people who are concerned and worried that the federal government is getting too powerful and encroaching into our lives. And getting into business that should be state business or local business. So their arguments aren't unfounded. They're just quite different from the Federalist Papers, which obviously resulted in our Constitution. So anyway, I appreciate you watching.